Good morning, everybody. Welcome back to the St. Louis podcast. Your glorious host today, Eric Brown, president of iMedia partner at Mogul Holdings. Today, we have Dan Grech on the St. Louis podcast. We're going to get in the weeds with him and his business. But before we do, as always, this is the St. Louis podcast each and every Friday at 7 a.m. Central Standard Time. We drop an episode on all major podcasting, audio, and video platforms where we meet with the most badass people and creators, talk about business, entrepreneurship, and current events. All right, Dan, let's jump into it. How you doing today?
Eric, doing great. And hello to St. Louis.
Yes. I appreciate you joining. Again, we got Dan Grech, CEO of BizHack Academy. Mission to train 1 million undeserved businesses how to grow.
Underserved, not undeserved.
Underserved. See, I told you, I always butcher something. Underserved businesses how to grow 10x faster using AI-powered marketing and business storytelling. And really kind of the conversation we were having beforehand is strategy, right? It
Yeah,
comes down to a lot of business owners simply, number one, they don't have a good grasp of marketing, but even if they don't have just a good grasp of overall strategy to begin with. So let's jump into, I talked about right beforehand where we work with a ton of home service companies, right?
yeah.
And you said you worked with a ton of Mosquito Joe franchises and you worked with over 30 of them. So I'm curious when it comes to, a business like that, right? Where people are actively searching for, a pest control, mosquito control company, right? That's going to be able to take care of their home. What do you find, number one, that, they don't understand? And how do you try and implement a strategy with, for example, Mosquito Joe?
Yeah. Well, let's talk, Eric, for a sec about what is generally true about home services companies
Yep.
and how they are similar to other business types and different than others. So the first thing about home service companies is the vast majority of people who run home service companies are operators, and often they're technicians. In other words, you run a plumbing company, you're a plumber. Sometimes you're even required to own it to be licensed in the field. So
Yep.
what that means is almost none of them are marketers. Second is almost all home services companies have like some level of demand where people are searching for that service.
Yep.
And the challenge they have is differentiating themselves from every other company that does what they do. And I can tell you that the go-to places for differentiation are we offer lower prices, which is murder on your
Yep.
bottom line. You
Hmm.
never want to be the low price offer. And second is we offer the best customer service, which everybody says and is really hard to prove. So a lot of these, I call these Me Too businesses, right? Businesses that um, more or less look the same as dozens of others. And so then, you have a challenge, which is like, how do I differentiate myself in the marketplace? How do I capture more than my fair share of the demand of people looking for my services? And we'll dig into that now. But that's what makes home services really distinct and really well suited to hiring an agency
Hmm.
and experts to help them because A, they don't know marketing, and B, there's a demand they need to capture, but they look like everybody else. So how do you make yourself distinct? And so I'd love to dig in with you on how home services companies and companies like them can tackle that challenge. And then where strategy comes in and a strategy consultant like a fractional chief marketing officer can help.
Yeah. Well, the first thing is with differentiating yourself, that is 100% a tough thing. And like you said, the biggest thing everyone uses is customer service or they get attacked on price point. And, one big thing I think when it comes to what I see, especially now on social media, and you know, we've been doing marketing for, I wouldn't even say a long time now. I should say a long time in my adult life. But, we used to focus at the beginning of our company mainly on just the demand side, right? People are searching for your type of business. Just make sure your Google business profile or you're paying for Google guaranteed or Google ads. Of course, you need to make sure that that cost per acquisition makes sense to grow. But it's hard to differentiate yourself on Google ads, right? Because it's just a search ad, right? You could say you're the top rated, blah, 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 in St. Louis or your city or whatever, and send them to a landing page. And hopefully you answer, their questions and things like that. But from an operator standpoint, really one thing we've been pushing, one thing that you can differentiate yourself with is actually having a story and being able to share that through social media or through those different avenues. Now, of course, at first, it's not like that's going to generate leads immediately, right, for your business. But what you want to look at, I think, at least, is if you're going to own a business, I'm not gonna build a business to exit in 3 years, right? Maybe your marketing strategy is going to be different if that's the case. But if you want the longevity of the business, really as the owner or whatever, one of your business partners or an executive at the company, really being able to take a hold, you have a brand, a really brand story, and it's true to the company, which is tough for some of these companies because you go in there and really there isn't anything that's different, right? Even when it comes to the business owner themselves. So you have to also fight down and figure out why did that business owner even start that business to begin with? And I think that's what a lot of people like lose sight of and lose track of because that is where the story begins, right? So, yeah, I mean, what are your thoughts on really differentiating through social media and really looking at it from a long-term perspective? Obviously, Google Ads and SEO and that stuff is important, but everyone's doing it. Really messaging, the best way to get messaging across is hopefully they're going to be watching some sort of video or some sort of content, even for a short period of time, and then them continuing to see that brand build as it grows.
Yeah. So you're kind of hitting into my sweet spot in terms of my expertise. There's this concept called the UVP, or unique value proposition, or
Yep.
USP, unique selling proposition. And when we're dealing with Me Too businesses, I think this concept is impossible, borderlining on maddening. And the reason why is because we are not generally offering something unique. And if we try to like go into, another potential area of uniqueness is, innovation or technical expertise.
Right.
None of these are things that are usually accessible to your average small business. So the one thing we have, and in my opinion, the only thing we have is our story, is our story. And so I think you're right on, Eric, which is you want to identify that story, and then you want to tell it in as many places as possible to as many people as possible, and not just prospects, but your customers, your team, your potential hires, your partners. You want to tell it on your website, in your social media. You want to hint at it in your Google ads. You have a couple
Yep.
words there, but
Mhm.
family owned, right? Like there's things you can do everywhere that you're touching them. We call this the communications diamond. So your business story, who you are, why you do what you do, and why it matters, is at the very core of your communications. It's the diamond, the hard center of the diamond. And then all the different audiences you talk to, all the different channels that you communicate on, those are all reflections of that hard center of the diamond. And you just need to make sure that you're communicating that consistently and effectively and authentically
Yep.
everywhere.
So when it comes to let's take it to like Mosquito Joe. Okay, you have 30 different franchise owners.
Right.
How do they figure out their story? Is there a strategy or is there a conversation that you have with these people that you try and figure that out? How do you
Yes.
try and figure that out?
Yeah. Great question. So the first thing is Mosquito Joe as a franchise
Mhm.
has a story
Yep.
um, about the founder of the franchise, the core values of the national network. And they're part of a larger company called Neighborly. And
Sure.
Neighborly also has a story and values. And so when you're a franchise and you kind of go to a large umbrella company called Neighborly, and then a parent company called Mosquito Joe. Those guys have their brand story, their core values defined, and you want to make sure that what you do lines up with that.
Mhm.
However, what people buy in local markets are you, the local franchisee,
Correct.
not national or umbrella holding company. So you need to then define your personal story. And so I'll give you like a beautiful example of one franchise's personal story. And then you can imagine that in all 30 of the different franchises that we worked with, every single owner had a different version of what I'm about to share. So Yoel Gutierrez runs Mosquito Joe of Miami. Yoel is the son of a Cuban immigrant. His father was a residential construction builder. He and two others built homes for a living.
Mhm.
And he was like so many hardworking, newly arrived immigrants, he was very successful, very hardworking, and it was a family business. And the idea was for Yoel, who would like go to the construction sites as a child, to inherit the business and build it. And then tragically, at age 16, Yoel's father died. And Yoel's partners bought his dad's portion of the company. And suddenly, Yoel lost not only his dad, but his career. And Yoel will admit he was lost. You know, he went to college, he ended up going into IT, but he always had this entrepreneurial bug that was inspired in him by his dad. And so in his 20s, he decided that he wanted to become a franchise owner. And he looked at the long list, like every franchisee,
Yep.
prospective franchisee does, and he
Mhm.
had to, and he asked himself, which one of these appeal to me personally? Like, which one of these appeal to me financially, right? Which one have the best numbers? Which one have the best support? And which of these just sort of speak to me? And for whatever the reason, he picked pest control, specifically outdoor spraying for mosquitoes. That's what Mosquito Joe does.
Yep.
Now, I don't know if any of you have ever been to Miami, but it's hot as hell and mosquitoes are a scourge. And I literally could not imagine a worse job than being a mosquito sprayer for a living.
Yep.
So when Yoel told me that he looked at that long list and picked that of all things, I was like,
Why?
dude, right, why? You could have owned a
Why?
Subway franchise, you could own an ice cream franchise, like you could have done something really fun, and you chose to be a pest control company. And he was like, and I asked him, like, why? Why did you pick that? Right. And this is the question, why? Like, why
Why?
do you
Yep.
do what you do? Why is the key question. We call it the five chain or the why exercise. And just by way of background, I'll come back to you all in a second. This why chain exercise that I do with all of my uh, clients, every franchise or small business owner would benefit from this exercise. Asked by a curious listener, someone who doesn't judge and is interested. You think of it like your best friend.
Mhm.
So come in, you ask why do you do this? Why does it matter? Why is it important to you? And you know when they start, they'll say something like this. You know, Yoel said, well, I picked Mosquito Joe because it had really good financials. It's a recurring revenue business model, and people need mosquito control continuously. And
Yep.
you know, you don't have to do a build out of since it's a home service, you don't have to do a build out of a retail space, so you can make your money back, your initial investment quickly. And I'm like, great, love it. But why? Why pest control? Right? Like why mosquito control? Why spraying? And so we just kept digging in and pushing and digging in, and he had no idea what to say. He was getting frustrated. I said, was there anyone in your life prior to turning 18 that influenced you to do a home service business? Right. And that was the question that unlocked it. And a lot of
Yep.
times the question that unlocks this is something that happened to you before you turned 18, before you went graduated from high school. Like we are imprinted in ways that we don't always fully comprehend by our childhoods.
Mhm.
So I asked him that question, and that unlocked things. He started to tell me about his dad. And then you could see him like he was really thinking about this. He's like, oh my God. Um, well, I pointed out to him, like, look, you know, your dad was in the business of building safe and comfortable homes for people,
Yep.
and you're in the same business.
Mhm.
When you spray, you're creating a safe, comfortable home for people. And he thought about it, and then he said, oh my God, you know, my dad, his name was Jose, but everyone used to call him Joe, Mosquito Joe. And
Oh, that's great.
it's like It's
That's
like
perfect.
it was there, Eric, the whole time, man. It was there the whole time. Yoel had no idea, but I'll tell you what, since he figured this out, now you go to his website. Do you see him talking about his dad? No. But everyone he hires, right,
Correct.
knows this story.
Mhm.
The values of the company are his dad's values,
Mhm.
right? When going gets tough, he looks up to heaven, he talks to his dad. His dad inspires him, he keeps him going, he helps him, right? So it builds resilience and and a feeling like what he's doing is part of his destiny and that there's a larger purpose to it than just making money. And guess what? So Yoel, since figuring this out, has become the top 5 franchise in the country of Mosquito Joe, more than $3 million a year in top line revenue. And he speaks nationally
That's
now to
amazing.
entrepreneurial groups about his dad, about the inspiration, about the multi-generational legacy, and about the ups and downs of the entrepreneurial journey. That's the power of telling your business story, is you attract people to you. He
Mhm.
has incredible retention of employees, deeply loyal partners, and a customer base that keeps coming back because those values of service and dedication, are evident in every touch and every customer interaction.
Yeah. No, I mean, just talking about this is making me think of why, we started our business. And really we have two whys, I guess, that we talk about. And number one is just simply being we got screwed over by a marketing agency previous to starting a marketing agency on a side business we were doing. And slowly started to talk to other owners of other businesses and realized that there's a ton of digital marketing companies that are taking money out of small businesses' pockets and not doing shit with it, just straight up taking it and not them not caring. So that's number one. And then number two, we had the whole goal of starting Vi was to be able to start other businesses off the back of Vi. So, how do we grow businesses through digital marketing properly? What are the best ways to do so? And then us being able to start other businesses off of Vi, which of course we eventually, got to and actually had the privilege of doing. But, really, those are two whys after the why of really why we're here, right? Because I would say when you think about it from Garrett, one of my business partners, and really, myself, both of our dads owned their whole, their business pretty much the entirety of their lives. Um, when both of them had issues pretty much in '08, and I think us seeing that, us knowing that, and then both of our moms actually having, normal, what you would call day-to-day jobs, realizing it's probably not what we want, right? And realizing that very, very early on, because of course, usually if your parents own a business, you're around that business. When you're small, you grow up in that business. I wiped down bottles, made sandwiches, cleaned up, did all the grunt work. But I think that instills something in people to eventually do something else. I don't know. I think there's something about it if you have, and I'm sure there's a stat to show it, that if you have a parent that owned a business and you were somewhat involved in that, even if on a small scale, did you have a lot more likelihood of being able to take risks and then therefore hopefully wanting to actually start a business.
Yeah. Eric, I wanted to, first of all, thank you for your authentic sharing. And second is I wanted to parse what you just did into two categories. So
Mhm.
I hope this is helpful to everybody. So there's two origin stories. There's the childhood origin story, which in this case is about growing up with entrepreneurial dad, also the kind of counter model of a workaday mom. And then absolutely, studies have shown, and anecdotally, I can tell you that almost every entrepreneur was born that way,
Mhm.
right? They were like selling stuff in high school and even elementary school. I used to sell blow pops. It's like we're born. This I sometimes call entrepreneurship a diagnosis.
Yeah. Yeah.
You can't help it.
Yep.
But then second, absolutely, like entrepreneurship, building a business is something you inherit. It's a knowledge you inherit, like being a watchmaker,
Mhm.
right? You were kind of apprenticed, in other words, by your dad, and though your business looks very different, the business of building a business stays the same, right? And so you learned kind of the entrepreneurial process and have the entrepreneurial spirit from your dad, right? And so that is, I call it your origin story, right? And it's sort of the source energy. You're the CEO of your company, the chief energy officer,
I like
right?
that.
And the source energy comes from your dad and the positive model that he presented. And by the way, a lot of people who are the children of entrepreneurs have terrible models of entrepreneurship, right? Like they like
Yeah,
have
it's
parents who
true.
failed miserably. Their life was constantly on the knife's edge of poverty. They
Mhm.
had to move around. There's a lot of how what I call like traumatic versions of this story. It sounds like yours was a more positive one. Um, Generally speaking, these stories, about half the time are stories of trauma, and then you're like, well, I'm going to do better,
Yep.
right? And then the other half is stories of love where you're going to follow that model. But then there's the other piece that you talked about, which is um, the story of the founding of the startup. So I call it the startup story.
Yep.
And your startup story, it happened in your adult life, and it was basically about being screwed over and mistreated by agencies and saying, I don't ever want to feel this way again. And I don't want anyone else to ever have to feel this way again. So I'm going to go start my own agency and I'm going to treat people right. And I'm going to
Yep.
tell them the truth and I'm not going to dazzle them with dashboards. And oh, by the way, that's a very appealing story, right? Because almost everyone you meet has been
Same thing.
lied to, overpromised, has experienced some form of trauma with a marketing agency. It absolutely is part of my story of transitioning from journalism to marketing as well. So those are the two buckets that you talked about. One is the origin story, which is usually the childhood and who you're influenced by, positive or negative, and then the second is the startup story, which are the specific circumstances that led you and your partners to start your business. It's really important you have both of those. And then the last piece to round out your business story is your core purpose. Like, why does what you do matter? Right? In other words, why is it important to you to serve home services businesses, right?
Yep.
Hyper serve them. Or in my case, why is it so important for me to serve underserved small businesses with marketing, training, and consulting? And so you talk about, like in my case, the importance of small businesses to Main Street. You talk about the percentage of the economy, more than 50%, that is in small businesses' hands. You talk
That's
about
the biggest thing is we need small businesses to survive. I
And
mean that
St. Louis, where you're based, is absolutely like a small business town,
Yep.
and small businesses, are under incredible pressure with inflation, with, the advent of AI, with the competitive pressure of the big technology companies. It's really hard for these companies. It's always been hard. It's, I think, getting harder. But also, like, those local businesses provide the flavor to our communities. Can you imagine? I mean, I love Chipotle. I'm based here in Denver, and Chipotle is a hometown company. I love, going to Subway. My son loves McDonald's. Like they all have a role, but what a sad place it would be to not have your local coffee shop, to not have your local sandwich shop, to not have your local restaurant. And so we, I feel really mission driven to help those small businesses get through one of the hardest pieces, which is marketing, so
Mhm.
that they can survive and thrive.
Yes. Yeah, I just looked it up. It says around 50% of small businesses around 50% of all employees are employed by a small business. So,
Yeah.
um,
And a
yeah,
similar percentage of the economic activity in the country.
same with GDP. Yeah, pretty similar. And they actually had more job creation over the last 10 years, more than 50%.
Well, they tend to, the big tech companies, they're generating often $1 million to $2 million in revenue per
Mhm.
employee.
Yep.
A small business, it's like closer to 150K.
Yeah.
So for less revenue, in other words, the big companies are more efficient. They're
Mhm.
more profit generating machines, but the smaller companies, the smaller businesses drive a lot more employment.
Yes. Yeah. I it even seems like on a total tangent here, it even seems like when it comes to a lot of people that you talk to, they don't understand that it seems like a lot of the attacks that have really been, frankly, taking place on small businesses aren't to the benefit of anyone, because it would be detrimental to literally everyone. Like, we don't want to have to go to Costco for everything. You know what
Oh
I
my
mean? We
God.
don't wanna have it's like Idiocracy, if you remember that movie, which is it's but it seems like it's becoming more and more true, where you go to Costco and it's everything you need. You don't have to go anywhere else. It's one company and that's it.
Yeah, it's like Amazon calls itself the everything store.
Right.
But if you look at its track record of how it treats the small businesses that sell through the platform, it's not a great story.
That is true.
I,
Yep.
yeah, like we have choices about the dollars we spend.
Mhm.
And one of the choices, look, I buy from Amazon, I'm a member of Costco, I get it, right? There's a role that those places play. The convenience is incredible, the
Yeah, I go to
quality and
Costco
the,
all the time. I go to
yeah,
Costco all the time.
it's more about just as consumers, we have a lot of power
Yes.
to make or break these businesses. I'll give you a great example. So I just joined Spenga. Spenga is a like a health and wellness company. It's like a workout place, right? And Spenga stands for spinning, strength, yoga. So it's 20 minutes, 20 minutes, 20 minutes, like a very innovative format.
Nice. Yep.
And I went to their 3-year party and I met the owners because I always love meeting small business owners. And so the very first thing you should do when you have a small business that speaks to you is you should go and introduce yourself to the owners and just ask them how you can support them, right?
Yeah.
And that's what I did. I went to their party. I didn't really care for to meet anyone but the owners, and I just introduced myself, said thank you for the customer service. And you walk into this gym. I had a lot of choices about where I joined, and I chose them in part because I just was so warmly received at the
Yep.
front desk. And I said, first thing you can do is tell them, hey man,
It's
you know,
that
Co
simple.
yeah, Colette, amazing. She's your new, I know you just hired her recently, like promote her, nurture her. She's amazing, right? And that kind of thing, like that makes a huge difference. And then say like, support them primarily with your business and then referring them to others. And so I think we are at the precipice right now, especially with AI and the disruptive technology of AI, where a lot of small businesses are really struggling.
Yeah.
And one of the best ways that we can support them is with making a concerted effort to do business with them.
Hey there, St. Louis podcast listeners. We've got some exciting news from our friends over at Farmers Insurance of St. Louis, led by the man, the myth, the legend, Mark Lee of Farmers Insurance.
Mhm.
If you're looking for a job or to own your own business under a brand that everyone and their cousin is familiar with, Mark Lee with Farmers Insurance of St. Louis is recruiting insurance agency owners here in St. Louis for their Farmers Insurance Mentorship Program.
And as many of you are aware, Garrett and I have owned quite a few successful and award-winning businesses over the years. And in a past life, one of those was a farmer's insurance agency out of Chesterfield, Missouri.
Eric and I know firsthand how hard it is to start a business under a brand that no one has heard of and convince consumers and businesses to trust that you're an authority figure in your industry.
And as many of you know, we own an award-winning marketing firm, Vi Media, the one that Garrett was just discussing. And building that company's reputation literally took years. We're still building it to this day, and it's been 8 years in the making. However, with the Trusted Farmers Insurance Agency name on the building, we got started when we started our Farmers Insurance Agency. The trust was already built and has been for 96 years.
And if you can't do math, that means Farmers Insurance has been around since 1928. Luckily, you don't need to be a human calculator to get rich as an owner of your very own Farmers Insurance Agency.
Nope. All you have to do is reach out to the one and only Mark Lee, the leader of Farmers Insurance in the greater St. Louis metropolitan area.
That's right. So ensure he continues to sponsor our show and your favorite podcast, the St. Louis Podcast, by quitting your job today and calling Mark Lee. I wouldn't even wait for him to answer your call. Call your boss now, quit, and become your very own business owner.
Visit insurancecareerstl.com. That is insurancecareerstl.com. Should we spell it out?
Yes, it would be.
INSURANCE, career, CAREER, STL.com, insurancecareerstl.com. Go there now. Back to the
Yes.
podcast.
And wait, insurancecareerstl.com.
Back to the podcast. Yeah, it's hard, right? The argument is, well, it's not even really an argument. It's just it's too easy. Like, it's too easy just to go on Amazon and order what you need, right? And I would say from a retail perspective, like, I go out of my way to buy specific, like, let's just say clothing, for example. A lot of the stuff I buy isn't from like massive retailers. So for the most part, I am supporting small businesses there. But it's hard when it comes to like just normal products that you need on a day-to-day basis, right? From a large retailer, it's like, where are you going to go support? Target, Amazon or Walmart. But it is very easy, and it's tough to say though, because even when you're going to restaurants, right? A lot of those restaurants, even if they are, they're everywhere else, those are independently owned and locally owned franchises. But it's a lot harder for me to support that versus the restaurant that is either new or has been here forever, and going and supporting them. Because at the end of the day, sure, franchise, restaurant, whatever, but this person, they own the restaurant, they're only here, they only care about St. Louis, right? Or they only care about the city that you're in. And you do have to consciously vote literally with your money, but most people just don't. Number one, don't want to take the time, and don't
Yeah.
realize really the detriment that it is. I mean, it's already caused, because small businesses are closing left and right, especially retail ones. Obviously, other industries are doing better, but it just seems like, there's an attack on small businesses, and we need to support them any way that we possibly can. Obviously, if they do a good job and they're a good
Yeah.
company themselves, right?
Yeah. So this is such a rich topic. Like, first of all, one of the reasons I love doing work on behalf of small businesses is because it's kind of like motherhood and apple pie. It's apolitical. Everybody loves and is in support of and wants to help small businesses, no matter what side of the aisle you're on.
Yep.
So that really appeals to me. I used to be a journalist, and so I kind of covered things as best I could without bias, and so entrepreneurship and being a business whose mission is to help other small businesses grow has been a great fit for me personally. um, I think another thing that you can do to help small businesses is give them honest feedback about what they're doing well and what they could do better. I'll give you. I didn't actually get a chance to talk to the owner about this, but I will. My
You don't have
favorite
to leave a Google review about it.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's better to be like human about it. So
Yep.
like, I went to a local Thai place on Sunday, and it was like a quick takeout, and it was a 2 hour wait. And they told us 15 to 30 minutes, and then we got there, and I waited with my 5 year old for an hour for the order. And there was like
Oh my god. I would have
20 other
left.
people. 20 other people. And the poor woman who was attending us is like, yeah, just don't order on Sundays because this is what happens. And
Interesting.
I said to myself, like, what a series of f ups by this company. Like, number one, don't tell me it'll be ready in 15 minutes if you know it won't be. Number two, you know, you're a victim of your own success. Like, if you know Sundays
Exactly.
are gonna be huge, try to staff up, or if you can't find the staff, limit the number of orders so that you don't have this horrible customer experience. And then, the third piece was look hard at the operations and ask yourself, is there a way to do this better, more efficiently, and start immediately implementing those so that you can actually take advantage of the demand. I mean, I'm not going to order from them ever on a Sunday again. They just lost many, many orders from me as a result. And it's just these are the unforced errors
Hmm.
that small businesses commit. It's interesting
What does
because
that say about the owner, though? Either they don't know or they don't care would lead me as a consumer. Those are the two things I would, because if the employee knows it's an issue every Sunday, it's like, well, fix the issue, or just
Yeah.
just don't take that many orders.
Yeah, I don't believe the owner doesn't care personally. Like, I feel the owner doesn't know better.
Right.
Yeah. So let me give you a
Which is third bucket, right? They don't know better.
yeah, and that's where consulting
Yep.
helps, right? Like, they
Mhm.
just don't know better. Like, they're and who knows, like, maybe this is like a relatively recent thing, right? Like,
Right.
they're really good. Like, I've had Thai in a bunch of places, and these guys are like heads and tails, like way better. And that's what they're a victim of their success. This is,
Yep. Mhm.
you know, the other analogy to this is like if you create a social media video and it goes viral, and then suddenly you sell out of your product. How do you manage all those people who want to order your product and it's sold out?
Yep.
Like that touch becomes essential to cementing them as longtime customers or losing them forever. So the one little touch that the woman, the employee did at the end is my son was sitting there waiting for us. While we were waiting, she brought us some moji ice cream, like those little Chinese ice creams or Japanese
Mhm.
ice creams, and that made things a lot better. And then he left his little stuffed Sonic the Hedgehog doll, and I called the next day, and they had it waiting for us. So they did little touches to kind of overcome, but the core mess up. And I actually want to bring this like it's not just them. I was listening to an amazing interview with the Howard Schultz from Starbucks, and he was talking about the biggest challenge for Starbucks, and he said there isn't a close second, is online ordering, is the app,
Yep.
because it's really degrading the in-store experience, which is really at the core of Starbucks. And
Starbucks they did that themselves though.
no, it's like self-inflicted injury. And
Correct. Right.
what's
Yeah.
crazy is they have $1 billion in unused credits on the app. So it's almost like a loan of $1 billion that they can then use to open. So it's like from a financial perspective, it's killer. I mean, each
Mhm.
store is now, but what's happening is it's degrading the experience, and Starbucks is now struggling. And so it's like sometimes you can be a victim of your own success, and it happens at the small Thai restaurant, and it happens at Starbucks. It's like the same issues,
Yep.
but Starbucks is better equipped, frankly, to manage these issues than often these small businesses are.
Well, I think the only reason people go there now is convenience. I don't think there's any other reason to go to Starbucks now, because 'cause they've gotten like, it used to be a coffee shop. You'd go in
Right.
there,
A third
peop
place.
right, people would be working and things like that, and, I mean, why would you wanna work in there now? There's people going in and out every minute. You know,
Exactly, it's degrading the
it's
experience for the
correct,
employees, and
correct,
it's degrading the experience for the in-store customers in exchange for becoming like a drive-through.
correct. That is what I think of Starbucks as now as scooters. You know what I mean? I don't know if you have scooters out there, but
Mhm.
just you know how there's coffee shops essentially just buying a little plot of land, put a little coffee shop there and a
Right.
drive-through around it. And it's not there's nothing personable about it, right? Going back to the story, well, now what's the story of Starbucks? The story is I go in there, I order on the app, hopefully it takes 5 seconds, I run in there, I get my coffee and I leave. Um, but there's also a lot of people now that are sick of number 1 supporting a company like Starbucks because they union bust, which is odd when they have so much money. But it's just so damn expensive now. Like $8, $8 for a coffee. It's like that. It's just stuff is getting also costly as well. So
Yeah.
it's
I mean,
interesting. I wonder how they're really going to turn that around. I saw that they're going to start writing your names back on your cups. It's like, okay. I mean, maybe a step in the right direction, but what is that really going to add that personal touch that needs to be back in there?
so what's interesting is Eric Schmidt is no longer running the company. Excuse me, geez, that's Google. Howard Schultz is no longer running the company,
Right.
but he wrote an open letter in LinkedIn to the new CEO saying, like, this is an existential risk of the company. And what's so interesting about this, and this is just goes to say how hard business is like probably the app is the most successful like rollout in Starbucks history. I mean, it's extraordinary from a finance. Like the CFO loves it,
Yes.
but it's destroying the business, according to Howard Schultz. And I tend to agree with him. And what you're saying reinforces that. And so The bottom line is like business is hard, and we always have to attend to like what Howard understands and the new CEO doesn't, and the CFO definitely doesn't, is that third place. That concept of like a place to go in, have a cup of coffee, and create community.
Yep.
Because, save maybe libraries, there's like no other third place for most of us. And most people don't like going into libraries because they can be a little smelly. And uncomfortable. So the bottom line is like Starbucks was like the go-to place to meet people, the go-to place to kind of create a community feeling. And then the uh, online ordering opened it to more types of consumers, but also put at risk the thing that made Starbucks Starbucks, and that they were somehow kind of almost miraculously able to maintain as they did a global expansion. But I feel like the problem that Starbucks is having is not that different than the problem. And this is why like listening to podcasts about the big companies can be very helpful if you're a small business owner. Like
Yes.
if the owner of the Thai restaurant heard this interview with Howard Schultz, he would probably reflect on his Sunday evening experience where his best and most loyal customers are getting lied to and screwed over, and given like a really substandard product. And he'd realize this success is an existential risk to my company. And we need to put an all hands on deck effort at figuring this out. And until we do, I, as the owner, I'm going to be there on Sunday nights filling bags. And he may have been there, I don't know, he or
Mhm.
she. But the point is that I really love small businesses and I want them to succeed, and giving that honest feedback, and telling them, building a relationship with the owner, referring them business if they deserve it, if they've earned it, and then telling them when they don't hit the mark in a loving way. That's how you can help your small businesses. And that really goes a long way. And to go back to kind of the beginning of the conversation, many of these small businesses need consulting. They need help. They need
Yeah.
somebody. And so the area that, my business and your business work in is marketing consulting, but there's operations consulting, there's strategic consulting, there's a lot of other things. And just broadly
Correct.
speaking, what I think fractional CMO or consulting services are is really about what should you be doing and understanding the why behind it.
Mhm.
So rather than random acts of marketing, you want to have a plan and a systematic approach. Marketing is a planned activity. You shouldn't be freelancing marketing. You're like, oh, let's send this email. Like if you find
Correct.
yourself doing things at the last minute, running campaigns at the last minute, that's a failure of marketing. And so to have someone guide your strategy, help you figure out what you should do, and then getting it done, right?
Mhm.
Most operators are pretty good at that, and you have choices. You can hire an agency, you can hire a part-time person, you can do it yourself. But the what to do, that's where you could really use some consulting and help. And so BizHack does offer that for many businesses. And then we offer training for the business owner that can't afford that consultant, but wants to understand the systematic approach to marketing.
Yeah, and what's I don't know why I still find that, when I talk to a lot of business owners, especially new business owners, I tell them, I'm like, go online and watch stuff about marketing. There is free education. I'm like, and then I talk to some people that I mean, they know some stuff that, I know, and I'm like, how the hell, how would you even know that? And they're super intelligent about marketing, even though they're a business owner in a different field. And a lot of the time, that can either go one of two ways. Usually good. But of course, what's also bad is someone that thinks they know too much and gets in their own way. Uh, but that's usually good when, you work with a business owner that maybe they don't have a great understanding, but at least they have the fundamentals down. And that's really what a business owner needs to understand is the fundamentals of marketing and what the fundamentals are for his type of business in his area or their area, her area, whatever, and what they're doing to be successful. Because you're right, a lot of the time it's just, oh, I'll post whenever on
Right.
social media. Maybe I'll get this piece of content out. Do I even have a Google business profile? It's like all of this stuff, it's out there for you. And that's one of the reasons why we started the Vi Media YouTube channel and just releasing free Marketing Monday episodes talking about this stuff. So I can be like, hey, and that's one actually talking about a differentiating factor with digital marketing agencies, I say, is go to our YouTube channel. We have tens of hours of free content talking about what we do for business owners. I don't know many other marketing agencies that are putting in the effort or the time to go ahead and get that done. So real quick, I know we don't have much time.
I
Uh,
just want to speak to what you're saying
yeah,
because it's so
absolutely.
critical. So, first of all, kudos to you for educating your customers. Too few agencies educate. In fact, many agencies prefer customers that are in the dark, and they
Correct.
intentionally, I call them dazzling with dashboards.
Yep.
They basically are trying to keep you in the dark because they think that'll keep you a customer longer. I think those are unethical agencies. I think the agency you want is an agency like yours that explains things clearly, tries to educate you, and recognizes that you may eventually go out on your own, and that sees that as a success scenario, not as something to avoid. And then, I totally agree with you that business owners don't generally know enough about marketing to be dangerous. And you take an approach by giving training away is to help get people aligned with your agency. I just run an academy where we teach it directly, and so we have systematic systems or methodologies for marketing and lead gen that will
Hmm.
make you a much better client to like Vi Media. And so we really believe that if you're failing at marketing, it's almost definitely on you. And the reason why is because you don't know enough to be able to lead the effort.
Yep.
And therefore you're either hiring the wrong folks or guiding them badly. So you do
Exactly.
need to dedicate a little bit of time and effort to educating yourself so that you can lead the effort more effectively. And the bottom line is for most small businesses, the owner or owners are going to be the heads of revenue. They're going to be the head of marketing and sales, and they're going to lead that effort. And that means they need to understand marketing, like many of them already understand sales.
Exactly right. Exactly right. I know we only got a few minutes left, so real quick about your book. So you're writing a book, The Story Driven Business. Uh, you said it was about telling personal stories through growth. So what? So explain to me about the book. What's going to be in there, and how does it apply to everyone, of course, listening right now?
Yeah, thank you. Well, I gave you kind of a preview of it in the story of Yoel Gutierrez, who's one of the people featured in the book, and the technique that we use, the Y chain exercise, to
Got it.
unearth that. And we talked about what are the elements of a business story, the origin story, the startup story, and the core purpose. So that's kind of in summary what the book's about. It's going to be, I'm writing it now. It's a joyous experience. It'll be released in 2026. And, I was put on earth to share this insight with as many small businesses. I had a almost 20-year career in journalism, transitioned in the last decade to entrepreneurship, and I have found that telling your business story, getting really noisy about it, is an unlocking mechanism for growth. And so I encourage every business owner to get authentic, to tell their story, and to tell it often and to every audience you have.
Yes. Thank you for saying that. Clip it. I'll post it. So everyone, all of my audience can just I say it all the time, right? It's getting to the point on Marketing Monday sometimes where I'm like, I've already talked about this, but I'm just going to say it again and again, and I will continue to say it until I don't know. I don't know. Cameras aren't here or YouTube isn't here anymore. All right, Dan. So before we get out of here, where can the people find you?
Yeah. So bizhack.com, bizhack.com. We have it was actually nice. This is the first podcast I've done in a while where we didn't talk about AI. All marketing incorporates AI, and we obviously have a lot of resources on that you can find at bizhack.com, including prompt guides and some strategy guides. I would also definitely recommend you look for us on social media at BizHack Academy, and our YouTube channel at BizHack Academy also is a place with a lot of great training. Keep an eye out for the lead building system, which is our systematic approach to marketing, and you can learn that on our YouTube channel.
Wonderful. All right. Well, as always, that is all the time we have for today. However, we will be back next week with a new episode, new guest. As always, shout out Half Coast Studios for taking care of us. If you need a podcast studio here in St. Louis or just need some help with distribution, you can reach out to them there. And as always, Vi Media, if you need a marketing company, give us a call. You'll most likely talk to me. Dan, thank you again. It was a pleasure, and we appreciate everyone's support. Goodbye.
Hey there, St. Louis podcast listeners. We've got some exciting news from our friends over at Farmers Insurance of St. Louis, led by the man, the myth, the legend, Mark Lee of Farmers Insurance.
Mm-hmm.
If you're looking for a job or to own your own business under a brand that everyone and their cousin is familiar with, Mark Lee with Farmers Insurance of St. Louis is recruiting insurance agency owners here in St. Louis for their Farmers Insurance Mentorship Program.
And as many of you are aware, Garrett and I have owned quite a few successful and award-winning businesses over the years. And in a past life, one of those was a farmer's insurance agency out of Chesterfield, Missouri.
Eric and I know firsthand how hard it is to start a business under a brand that no one has heard of and convince consumers and businesses to trust that you're an authority figure in your industry.
And as many of you know, we own an award-winning marketing firm, Vi Media, the one that Garrett was just discussing. And building that company's reputation literally took years. We're still building it to this day, and it's been 8 years in the making. However, with the Trusted Farmers Insurance Agency name on the building, we got started when we started our Farmers Insurance Agency. The trust was already built and has been for 96 years.
And if you can't do math, that means Farmers Insurance has been around since 1928. Luckily, you don't need to be a human calculator to get rich as an owner of your very own Farmers Insurance Agency.
Nope. All you have to do is reach out to the one and only Mark Lee, the leader of Farmers Insurance in the greater St. Louis metropolitan area.
That's right. So ensure he continues to sponsor our show and your favorite podcast, the St. Louis podcast, by quitting your job today and calling Mark Lee. I wouldn't even wait for him to answer your call. Call your boss now, quit, and become your very own business owner.
Visit insurancecareerstl.com. That is insurancecareerstl.com. Should we spell it out?
Yes. It would
INSURANCE, career, CAREER, STL.com, insurancecareerstl.com. Go there now. Back to the podcast.
And wait, insurancecareerstl.com.
Back to the podcast.